This episode was brought to you by Awesome, AWSM. Awesome is a platform that makes it super easy for companies to give ownership to the people who are creating value for them. It's like Venmo and Stripe, but for equity. Brands can easily share ownership with their agency partners, their influencers and brand ambassadors, their fans and customers, and their employees. Learn more at awesome.com, AWSM.com. All right, welcome to Brand, Sweat, and Tears. I'm Dave Oldham, the host, and today my guest is Ben Perkins, who is the inventor and founder of &Color, which in the beginning was dress shirts. Indestructible, should we say indestructible dress shirts? When I first saw the commercial, I was like, dude, there's no way, that's amazing. And so my wife subsequently had to buy me a couple because I'm a messy eater. And now I have a 15-year-old boy, and we only buy &Color shirts because he invariably spills stuff on his shirts. I know that's not the only function, but that's the core. That's the core benefit for us is these almost indestructible dress shirts, which is super nice. But now you guys do way more than that. So I want to let Ben, I want to start with the origin story. Like, how did this come about? How did this begin? And then I'm just going to pepper you with lots of questions.
I may not pepper you back with answers, but I'll try. Thanks for having me, Dave. The origin story, your son is in the majority instead of the minority. When you said he invariably, spills on himself,
Yeah.
I think the last thing you think about, whether you're a 13-year-old boy like when I started it, or at least came up with the idea.
You came up with the idea when you were 13?
Okay,
this is so cool.
And yeah, whether you're 13 or 28 or 54 or whatever age, I don't think men really change. And I don't mean that in a great way.
Honestly, I haven't gotten any better at not spilling.
It's like, and in fairness, I don't think your love of dress shirts increases over time, even if your wear and use has to.
Yes.
And so, the idea came as a 13-year-old. I was in Hong Kong, so it was hot and humid. And that's when Under Armour first came out. If you remember, Kevin Plank came out with, it started with this iconic turtleneck. That was really when they were getting big. It was synthetic fabrics. And I'm this tall American kid walking around the streets of Hong Kong wearing turtlenecks. Just spandex. I looked like I was from The Incredibles. And I apologize retrospectively and retroactively to my parents. I'm just a total stain on their family, just wearing spandex around. But in
Hong Kong, you were tall, blonde, blue-eyed. You were a superhero. Right? You probably got stopped for photos and autographs.
See, a superhero or just super weirdo? Well, one or the other. And it was just the way the fabric interacted with my body. I was like, this is awesome. And then it started being incorporated into my soccer jerseys. And I was like, this is great. And that was in stark contrast to what I had to wear for, school functions or church functions or formal functions, which was this starchy cotton dress shirt.
Yeah.
And
hot, sticky, stiff.
Yep. All those bad adjectives. Yeah. That's what those dress shirts were in my head.
Yeah.
And I guess that was my biggest pain point as a pubescent, awkward 13-year-old was, man, that girl is not going to like me if I'm in my gross dress shirt.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the first time the synapses in my brain ever, the entrepreneurial idea, or really the concept of starting and creating creating a solution for an individual problem ever happened. And so the idea was, let's combine these awesome dress shirts that are kind of Under Armour material, these awesome jerseys in Under Armour synthetic materials with a dress shirt. Yeah. So a dress shirt or a soccer jersey, I guess, in disguise.
Yeah.
And so that happened in 2008. So as a 13-year-old, my parents' allowance didn't cover MOQs of back then 5,000 units of stretchy dress shirts.
MOQ is minimum order quantity.
Yeah,
right?
And I didn't know that back then because just north of the border is a big manufacturing town.
Yeah.
And so, I went with my $80, and I said, "How much will this get me?" Didn't get me very far.
You can buy 2 shirts.
Yeah. And so, kicked the can down the road. Did a different business to just, I guess, do it. And Fast forward a few years.
Did you start that other business?
I did.
Should we talk about what that other business
Yeah, we can do
is?
it quickly.
Okay.
So my problem at the time was my parents, speaking of allowance, I guess all my problems were constraint of, or of money.
Yeah.
My parents bought me my first ever professional soccer cleats.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were $200. I remember very clearly a pair of
Ooh,
Nike cleats.
$200.
Yeah, $200.
Ooh,
They
you're in
were
the big time.
Yeah, oh, I was.
Yeah.
They were Wayne Rooney's cleats, and they were,
Oh, yeah.
you know, like the Sandlot. They're supposed to make you kick harder and more accurately.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need these. And my parents very generously bought them for me. 3 months later, Adidas came out with their new high-tech shoe for Lionel Messi. And of course, I needed those.
Yeah.
My parents said, well, these Nike cleats are perfectly fine.
These are supposed to last you the rest of your life.
Yeah. And so, yeah, they didn't have that in the depreciation schedule. And so they're like, well, you need to pay for those yourself if you want them. And my
okay, I guess I'm an entrepreneur now.
Yeah, seriously. And well, actually, that happened next because my parents were like, okay, we can help you find the $200 or whatever to buy these new Adidas cleats. You just need to work for it. And so they gave me odd jobs and chores and connected me with neighbors. And I found very quickly that, scrubbing toilets for $5 wasn't me.
It wasn't your dream job.
It's not my dream.
Yeah.
And no discredit to anyone who does it. In fact, all the respect in the world for people who do that.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. And I was like, okay, I cannot do this to get to 200. My brother was a early, kind of website developer. And he said, hey, you waste all of your time. And he used the word waste. You waste all of your time looking at soccer cleats and thinking about soccer cleats anyway. Why don't I set you up with a WordPress blog? You can just write about them. And then maybe one day Nike and Adidas can send you cleats.
Nice.
And so,
were you one of the first soccer cleat influencers
I was
on the planet?
Yeah, I was.
Nice.
And so that was awesome. That wasn't even a phrase back then. But I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was an influencer. And so I remember at first, this was at the same time, they were happening concurrently, the dress shirt idea. And I designed a logo for the dress shirt idea on my family singular desktop on Microsoft Paint. It was Wikisweb. But at the same time, I started soccerreviews.com. And anyway, ended up growing it as a teenager and high schooler. I found out that's what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
We ended up having 16 writers for us. And
whoa, so this got big.
It did.
Nice.
So actually, that was my favorite business.
Okay.
And then ended up selling it off right before I went into
so
college.
you did start getting cleats from Nike?
I did. It took a couple of years. I was begging.
Yeah.
This might be in the sweat and tears part, where I would email every single day basically and say, please just send me something.
Yeah.
And we needed to get traffic up to a certain point. And at its peak, we were getting back then, 300,000 unique visitors a month. And it was really good traffic. And if I looked back at Google Analytics, I'd die for that quality of traffic for our site now.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a really fun thing. But
so I think this is an important part of the story is like, this didn't happen overnight. You had to stick it out long enough and be consistent long enough to start building kind of that exponential curve, like to start getting attention. So how did that feel and what kind of kept you motivated? There's certain points where you're probably like, nobody's reading this content yet, right? And what was maybe the turning point? When did it feel like, oh my gosh, okay, this is starting to work?
I can tell you that point for and color, and I guess we can get to that later, but with soccer reviews, on Google Analytics, it does you can look at live traffic, and I could see a bubble every single person who was looking, or lack of people who were looking. And I'd be like,
well, if you see a bundle, you have one bubble for every single person. You've got like 5, 10.
Yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh, I've got one, and it's my dad next door. Probably that moment, if we're talking like this inflection point, was probably when Nike sent their first care package. I remember the cleat. It was a pair of Nike CTR 360 Maestries. And they sent it to my dad's office. I was too embarrassed to send it to my home address. And I needed to have a front like I was older than I was. So they sent it to my dad's
official
office.
Business address. Yeah.
And they sent it. And I remember just hopping on a bus the very second I saw it delivered. I couldn't wait, the hour for my dad to come home from work.
Nice.
And so anyway, I think that was the moment. And I was like, wow, I've made
I've made it. So what was your audience like at that point for Nike to say like, okay, maybe this is worth at least a pair of shoes?
Yeah. Back then it was we probably were at 50,000
Wow. Okay.
visitors a month.
So you just slowly kind of added.
Yeah. It just happened. And I mean, there's very much direct correlation with content creation. It wasn't, and content output. It wasn't we went viral on TikTok.
Right,
like we didn't have just this moment where we just exploded.
It's kind of
or
steady, consistent growth.
It was just, weekly. It was a content schedule. Weekly, I would post weekly boot spotting. So it'd be, okay, what cleats is Wayne Rooney wearing this week?
Yeah.
And what cleats is David Beckham wearing this week? I'm dating myself because he was still playing.
Yeah.
And I would post that. And then I'd post anytime a new cleat is released. And I'd say, these are the specs.
Okay.
And so, it definitely did not happen overnight. Neither did And Color. And I think my favorite phrase that I've now heard is, an overnight success X years in the making.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's true.
Yeah.
Where I think there is an inflection point for a lot of businesses. I'm sure there was with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're in the thick of it, I don't think you realize that, but then you take a step back and it's like, oh.
Yeah, when you look back, you're like, oh, okay, that was the moment. That was the thing that happened. Yeah. Okay, so you're the world's first and most important soccer cleat influencer blogger. You build this big team. At what point, so did you eventually sell that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what made you, or what was the timing of selling that business? And then how did you circle back to this idea that had been haunting you for years in the back of your head, this shirt idea?
Yeah, the decision was mostly decided by the fact that I went to go play college soccer at the University of Kentucky.
Okay.
And the compliance department, this is pre-NIL, looked at it and said, hey, you're getting sent free product.
Okay.
Little did they know that I was
no-no for college athletes. Right?
Little did they know that I was horrible at the sport and it was not being sent to me.
It has nothing to do with your game.
With my talent. Yeah. And I tried to tell them that. And I was like, literally, this has nothing to do with me as an actual player.
Yeah. But you're too humble. I mean, playing soccer, collegiate, Division I, Kentucky, it's good.
It was good.
Yeah.
But that was the
not
real
quite
reason.
English Premier League yet, but
that was the dream.
Yeah.
The dream was not to sell stretchy dress shirts. But yeah, that was really what made, pushed me over the edge. With that being said, my big learning was I should have sold it earlier, where we had this, this great curve. And then whatever reason, all of my writers were all high schoolers and we all hit senior year at the same time.
And everyone bailed.
And everyone kind of just slowly stopped that, that creative output that I was talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember off the top of my head, but output it was almost like a cliff.
Wow.
Just dropped overnight. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I sold the business, not for much. I think it was 20,000, but I remember there was an offer from, it's the largest retailer for sports equipment or soccer equipment, in the US. They had an offer for $300,000.
Wow.
And so I'm like, oh gosh, if I
Missed
wasn't an idiot.
window.
Yeah. And so that's a learning I'm taking into And Color now.
Okay.
But that was a really fun chapter. Circling back to And Color,
So you're in college.
Yeah, so I'm in college, and then I decide to go on an LDS mission. And I think everyone knows that the staple is a white dress shirt. So I was in the Philippines for 2 years, and I'm wearing a cotton dress shirt. And the heat and humidity says that problem just,
sticky. Did you have to wear like multiple shirts a day? Did you guys do that?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely get to that point where it's like noon and you're like, oh my gosh, this one's all the way sweated through. But towards the end, I was like, I'm just going to sweat through the other one.
Just going to own it.
Yeah. This is doubling my wash, my wash load. So I mean, it was this 13-year-old's problem exacerbated by
10x.
10x. And it's like, okay, I came home from that and
still, this is like almost like 9 years later or so, like 8 or 9 years later, and nobody tackled this problem still yet, right?
Yeah, no one had. And that was my thing.
Still, all of that stuff was in the sporting goods or sporting athleisure or whatever. Nobody had said like, hey, let's apply this concept to more of like dressy, like upper end fashion or something.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, the fabric was already there and I'm not going to pretend I'm this great inventor.
Yeah.
who created the fabric. I just simply applied it to dress clothes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I came up from the mission and said, okay, I want to get a real job on the East Coast. I did not want to be an entrepreneur. And
specifically, you thought like, I don't want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I was like, I thought I was going to be a management consultant.
Okay.
And thank goodness I'm not. and yeah, it was, hey, this is enough of like a line item on a resume for me to really have a good conversation with you if you're the hirer.
Yeah.
To say, look, I remember the goal very specifically was source and sell $50,000 worth of product.
That was it.
Yep.
Okay.
So 1,000 units is basically the math.
Okay.
And I was like, I can do this. And if not, then I need to learn a little bit.
Yeah.
And I went to my brother, the same one who set me up on the website. He's really the enabler for this addiction, I guess, for this entrepreneurship addiction. And he said, look, set aside the 20 grand that you got from selling that business. Pretend you just lit it on fire, and you're calling that an investment.
Yeah.
It's a mini MBA at the very least.
Yeah.
Where
smart.
You're going to expedite your learnings tenfold. But the odds are.
Was your brother a lot older than you?
He's 12 years older. Yeah.
Okay. So he had the foresight or some like wisdom to say like, hey, this is going to be a valuable investment for you, May.
Yeah.
And you had enough respect for him that you're like, okay.
Yep. Exactly.
I'm not going to go. I mean, that's a lot of respect for your brother and a lot of trust and a lot of confidence in yourself, because $20,000 is even, as a college kid, man. So it's pretty smart of you and good and trusting in your brother's advice to say, okay, I'll invest this in this kind of business endeavor, even though ironically and kind of funny, this is a great part of this story. I think you weren't even trying to be an entrepreneur. This was like a stepping stone towards being a management consultant. It's like, hey, if I can do this, then I might have the authority or experience to be able to speak to others intelligently about like their business.
That was, literally, that's what it was. It was very, you said it perfectly, a stepping stone.
Okay.
And hopefully the positive byproduct was I could just use it for all of my school projects and saying, hey, instead of me writing a paper on Nike, as much as I love Nike,
real thing.
Yeah, I did the real thing. I'm going to write my paper, and it's kind of, killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
I get the school project and I get to build my business.
Yeah.
So that is very much supposed to serve a purpose.
Yeah.
And that purpose was not to be talking
like
to you 7 years later. Or 6 years later and make any money. And so that was January 2017, got the first prototypes, March 2017, launched on.
How did you find a manufacturer?
So I was about to say, I have a leg up because I grew up in Southeast Asia, but the honest answer is I went through a group called Prodigy Promos.
Okay.
They're here in Utah.
Yeah, they do a lot of like swag.
Yeah, they're swag.
Right?
It's a swag provider.
Yeah.
And once you Google swag provider, I mean, you'll see 15 really great partners.
Yeah.
It's much easier than you think. You just hop on there and say, look, and I remember the prototype process. I wish I could talk to you for more than 30 seconds about it. But the truth was I took a RSL, so Real Salt Lake soccer jersey.
Yeah.
And a Utah Jazz jersey, and then a dress shirt that I liked the look of. I said, "Hey, can you guys just combine
this into this?"
Yeah, that's literally all it was, like a Dr. Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah,
and that's what we accomplished. They found their factory, or I guess they already have a factory.
Yeah.
And they sent over samples. I remember they sent 2 samples. The one was straight spandex. I mean, this thing you could pull it from the 2 sides of the room and it would not rip.
Did it look like a dress shirt?
No, this one did not.
Okay.
I mean, this one was like a Navy SEAL type like suit.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other one was like parchment paper. Like it was very light, but it's incredibly wrinkly. And I'm like, okay.
Like maybe see-through.
Yeah. Can we just combine these 2?
Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. And that's all. I mean, again, not a formulaic process. And we said, combine the 2. And that was the first, back then, blue and white collar product.
Oh, so that's right. I vaguely remember this when the company was first created. It was blue and white collar. So what was the genesis behind that name?
I wish that I could tell you I love the brand name what it is now or what it was to begin. But blue and white collar, the idea was a blue collar doctor, or excuse me, a blue collar plumber or a white collar doctor. So
both
could both use it, and it serves their lives and kind of the function
Okay.
equally well.
Yeah.
And so that was the idea. We, we're doing that for 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. And we thought we built up this great brand equity.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, it's like we had 800 customers. but yeah,
those 800.
Yeah, those 800. And we're like, we can't lose them. But not even my cousins or grandma can remember the name.
Really?
We have to change.
Okay.
I mean, it's a mouthful, blue and white collar.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, we need to change it. But yeah, we have all these customers. We don't want to lose them. Let's just get rid of the blue. Let's get rid of the white, and we'll call it and collar.
Okay, so you guys brainstormed that internally and said, okay, we've got to simplify. We're just going to take off the colors.
Yeah.
And collar.
That's literally the. If I gave you kind of our reverse engineered answer, it's saying, hey, everything in life, all your big milestones comes back to the collar.
Yeah.
It's a wedding and collar. I mean, for your wedding, you're wearing a collar.
Okay.
It's
like blank
it's a funeral.
and
Yeah, it's a funeral
and the blank
and
is
collar.
It's special events.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's if I was trying to give you a good marketing answer, but I told you the truth. It's
now that after the fact, you're like, hey, it fits really well.
Yeah. Now we can.
We didn't maybe quite think of that in the moment.
Yeah.
It was like, let's just hack out the stuff to make it simpler.
Yeah. So I don't love the name. It kind of gets stuck in the throat. It's like, but it's fine, and it's served its
and
purpose.
the .com was available.
Yeah, it was for $7.99 on GoDaddy. It's like, we can do it.
Okay.
So that was the name, and yeah, we launched on Kickstarter August 2017. We did $20,000 on there, and that's, I think you might get into this later. That's where the begging happens, where there's no digital marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is literally all of my money.
Yeah.
And you have to be very vulnerable, and and it's like, hey,
did you do a video?
Yeah, we did a video, and it's you pay some kids, some college kids. We paid them, I think, $600.
Yeah. Did you guys film it yourselves?
They filmed it, but we had to script write it, and it was in the back of a truck on a super hot day in Draper. This is the fun story. We found a neighborhood. It was a cul-de-sac in Draper, and you have the cool mountains behind you. This is middle of July, so it's hot.
Yeah,
and we had to knock on every single door in that cul-de-sac. It's probably 10 houses. We needed a long road.
Yeah.
And said, can you please just stay inside your house for, an hour?
Really?
We have nothing.
You didn't want anyone coming outside?
Yeah, we have nothing to give you.
Yeah.
But
did you have forms to say, I released my image and likeness?
Literally none of that. Where it's like, we just knocked and we didn't know anyone in the neighborhood. Please just stay inside. We're trying to film something. And I think
was everybody pretty cool, or were
they were pretty cool. That's where we started to use the student card. And it's like, hey, we're students. We're working on a project. Okay. This is awesome cul-de-sac, please. And so, that was it. It was so hot, and it was all one take, and it was the back of a truck, whereas where the camera was, and this actor that we paid, who was also a student actor, walking at the camera, reading a script. And for whatever reason, we didn't do any cuts, and so we had to memorize this 90-second script walking. And we ended up writing cue cards and like tossing them. And anyway, so
finally worked out.
It worked out.
How many takes did you have to do?
Oh my gosh, probably 20. And the truck was making too much sound for the boom mic.
Right.
So we had to turn off the truck, and we needed 2 people to push the truck with the camera, and then someone operating the camera behind.
So like pushing the truck in the 200 degrees. Well, not 200, like 90 degrees.
Seriously, it was 95 degrees, and there's so much sweat going on. It's like, please just get this, say the script right.
Yeah.
And so that's how we filmed.
That original video, did you like do the ketchup and mayo and wine or any of that stuff?
So the shirt, the first edition of the shirt did not have stain repellents and was not made of recycled materials.
Okay.
So
what was that original pitch? What was the script?
Yeah, the script was, this is your sports jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, this was your...
Just kind of focused on the softness, the somewhat sweat-resistant kind of nature of a jersey.
Yeah, so it's, I think really kind of the tagline was something to the effect of Sunday, feel like game day, look like Sunday, or something like that.
That's catchy.
Where it's, hey, you can be comfortable. Comfort was the real pitch. Where because of the stretch, because of, a little bit of the moisture wicking or breathability.
Yeah.
You will be more comfortable.
Okay.
But there was no stain repellents. And I think that's really what helped us take off.
Yeah.
Which that came 2 years later.
Okay.
Because and from
This is 2017.
Yeah, August 2017.
What was your goal on Kickstarter?
10,000.
Okay.
And we did 23,000, 24,000.
Nice. How fast? Like, what was the
in
window?
the 30-day period?
Okay.
So no ad spend, and that was that's where you have to ask, and you text, and you hop on Facebook too.
Okay.
I mean, it's a little bit of that.
You're begging friends.
Yeah, you're the person that comes out of the woodwork.
Video around.
Yeah.
Everybody buy a shirt.
Or
10 shirts.
Yeah. And there was kind of the misconception that it was GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm just asking you to donate. Where it's like,
yeah,
technically, I'm still trying to sell you a product.
Yeah.
You'll
get a shirt.
Yeah, you will get a shirt.
Yeah.
And anyway, so yeah, we did the Kickstarter, 24,000, because they were all, within 1 or 2 circles of, I guess, my network.
Your network, yeah.
Most of them were local.
Yeah.
And so in my dumb head, I thought it would be cheaper to take my truck and hand deliver all of those from Ogden to Spanish Fort.
No way.
Than just put them in the post office where the math is like $6. and for whatever reason, I'm like, I paid more in gas.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess,
did you recruit some friends?
Yeah,
and family
it was
run to the doors.
It was my 4 buddies, and
Okay.
I said, "Look, you can put this as you can be interns. Put it on your resume."
Yes. Okay.
And yeah, we knocked, and it was after school, and so it was all night hours.
Did you map out the route to make
a
it
little
efficient?
bit? Yeah, we tried to be a little bit efficient.
You're
It's
like driving all over the
yeah.
place.
One day we said, okay, you guys will be Weber County.
Okay.
I'll be Salt Lake County, and you're Utah County.
Yeah.
And yeah, we hand delivered it, and I feel bad for those early customers because I'd like show up at your door at 8 p.m. I had to wait for school and stuff to finish. It's like dark, you don't know me.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, Dave.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've never seen me.
Yeah.
I have your shirt.
You're like,
yeah.
Wow, this is some great service.
It's great
the CEO is bringing me my shirt personally.
I think it's a little bit more of this stalker. It's like, okay, I didn't want the shirt
crazy
that
dude.
bad.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we hand delivered those as probably, I don't know, 200 orders.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably 120 orders, I think.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So
up to every day.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, did that. And then just very passively had a site, on Shopify after that.
Mm-hmm.
No ad spend.
How did you think in terms of pricing coming off of the Kickstarter campaign? Because, you've got costs, and the costs are higher when there's a low volume.
Yep.
How did you approach that? Was it a little trial and error, or?
Yeah, trial and error for sure, because our pricing on the shirt, the white shirt, has changed from, I think we launched at $48. And so that's 2017.
Mm-hmm.
In 2020, it went down to 35.
Mm.
And now we're back up to 48. And
really?
And
Okay.
at one point it was 40 and 45. So we're still in that testing phase.
Okay.
Customers have been very patient with us as we're trying to find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
And so I think to begin, there was no real math or data to tell us why we chose 48.
Yeah.
It was almost
what caused you to drop it a little bit? Was it COVID?
Yeah, it was COVID.
So what's interesting is so many e-commerce companies exploded during COVID in a good way, like increased. But because dress shirts are heavily correlated with work and public events, like special events, weddings and everything. So did that hurt you guys pretty bad?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
I mean,
so you're like the one e-commerce company. You're like, damn it, like everybody else is crushing
seriously.
it.
Yes, because summer 2019 is right when I graduated from college, I decided to do it full time with his name's Jordan Larson. He was in the advertising program at BYU. And he was one of 4 people I had paid to do my initial branding.
Yeah.
I paid him $500.
Mm-hmm.
It actually might still be on our AP. But yeah, it's like, hey, and he got a job out in New York, and he's like, hey, I think I want to do this full time with you. And we had received really good validation at student pitch competitions.
Yeah.
Where, local shops are the judges.
Yeah. Were you doing those solo before?
Yeah. So doing all of those. And we were perennial losers. We'd always take second. But it was the Mercado.
First losers, though.
Yeah, first losers.
Yeah.
It was the Mercado partners, a couple guys from there, and they won't even remember me. And John Yoon and Dennis Wood, they were judges, and we had done 100,000 in revenue at the time. This is October in 2018. And they were like, are you trying to raise money? I'm like, no, I'm trying to go to DC in the summer.
You were still
next summer,
no, this is just
it was
like my
plugging
stepping
along,
stone
just
project.
fulfilling it out of my then girlfriend's garage.
Okay.
And they were the ones who were like, hey, you should probably reconsider. And I went home, and you're talking about my brother having trust in him.
Yeah.
My dad, the first thing he does is does a spreadsheet. And he's like, wow, you only have to sell X units, and this would be a better life. And so I was like, okay, I'll decide to do it full time. So summer 2019, decided to do it full time. Jordan decided to do it full time as well.
Okay.
The month we decided to do it full time, I think we did 4,000 in gross revenue. Again, emphasis on gross revenue. So I'm like, what sort of idiots? What sort of idiots thought they could support full-time jobs, 2 full-time jobs off that?
Yeah.
So
how much ramen can
seriously,
buy?
It's like a lot of naivete, and we decided to take the plunge, and it was really good growth. So 2017 we did 27,000, I think, from August to the end of the year. 2018 we did 70,000. 2019 starting to do it full-time in the summer. We ended up doing 300,000. So I was like, oh, there's something here.
Yeah. What did you do to kind of cause the increase? Were you just, again, back to the blog story, and like you were just consistent content, kind of reaching out to people on social media? Like, what was your marketing strategy in those early days?
Almost no ad spend back then.
Okay.
And so that was all organic growth. So that was us trying
Probably a lot of word of mouth.
Yep. A lot of
people are like, hey, this is a really cool shirt.
Yeah. It was word of mouth. Yeah. And I think us trying to do those kind of non-scalable things. And so that's where the customers back then would receive a handwritten note and say, and maybe it's a little bit weird looking at it, but it's like, hey, Dave, I noticed you're in Linden, a town here in Utah. My uncle's from Linden. Anyway, just thanks. So a little bit.
Trying to make it personal.
Yeah, trying to do stuff like that. Yeah. We would do things like that. 2020 is when we changed, and that was out of desperation. So we were like, oh, this is good. And we thought we were going to do great. Then 2020, March, the first thing that went were dress shirts.
Yeah.
I knew other people that had.
At that point, you still just had the one SKU, basically. I mean, a couple of colors, but like one model.
Just 2 styles of the shirt with 2 fits. So I think total SKUs at the time was 30.
Okay.
So it was 2 fits, white and blue shirts.
Okay.
And 99% of revenue coming from the white. And the first thing people stopped wearing, because you talked about, the white dress shirt or just the dress shirt, I guess, is worn at weddings, funerals, job interviews, graduations,
church.
Yep.
All the things that shut down.
Yep. All of the things that shut down. It's like, oh God.
Nobody's wearing a white dress shirt in their house, even for Zoom.
No. And it's like, that's what people would joke about, but they're not.
Yeah.
I was there. You were there.
Yeah.
It's like,
no, we were t-shirts.
Yeah. You wear t-shirts and you wear sweatpants. So that's where Jordan and I had a heart to heart. And it's like, you know what? Like,
did you think it was the end?
We thought it was the end. And we were like, let's just swing big,
Okay.
Let's either die really fast.
This is all or nothing.
Yeah.
This moment.
Yeah. For some reason, we made it an all or nothing moment.
Wow.
And
were you at that point, what were your emotions like? Were you like, maybe I kind of want to shut this down because this will be a relief, given the fact that you'd never intended to be an entrepreneur, and it feels like you were kind of sucked into it a little bit, which is great. It's like people wanted this product. Were you kind of secretly like, I kind of hope we fail and I'll just shut this down and move on with my life? Or at that point were you like, I really want this to succeed?
I think that one was more of a pride thing than anything because I had a pretty...
I can't fail.
I thought I had a pretty good trajectory, like at least in the minds of all my close family and friends, where like I was supposed to go do things.
Yeah.
And I was this dummy that ended up working for $0 to sell white dress shirts.
Okay. So that's real, right? Like you're like, what will my family and friends think?
That's probably the real
motivator.
Yeah. It's like, on a side, I have to prove that my decision was right.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds horrible, but it's like,
no, but that's real, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay. I got to make this.
I have to prove everyone wrong.
Well, sometimes that's the juice that you need to do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Is that extra momentum, the extra little push is like pride. What mostly could be a negative thing is like in those moments, sometimes that's the fuel that gets you through the hard thing, for better, for worse, right? And so you're like, I just can't I'm going to figure this out. I have to do this because I can't be seen as a failure or whatever.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I think Jordan was the same boat
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, we don't want to go crawling, with our tail between our legs saying, oh, this was a failure.
Yeah.
And that's where kind of your and my story, I guess, kind of starts, where at the time there was a group called Creatively, or they're still around.
Yeah.
And their whole thing was long form. So kind of long videos that are funny, that sell. I mean, funny infomercials almost.
Yeah.
And I'd always been attracted to those as a consumer.
Yeah.
You look at or they're called the Harmon Brothers, but you look at Squatty Potty, Purple, some of the great businesses from Utah, consumer brands from Utah were built on the back of those.
Hilarious, long form, like funny infomercials, basically. Yeah.
And we'd always been attracted to those. And we read these case studies where the companies during the Great Recession, the ones who invested into marketing were the ones who came out on the other side.
Oh, really?
Growing. I look back at it and I'm like, okay, it was like Apple and it was all Fortune 500 companies.
But there's something to that, right? Instead of like slowly dying, this all or nothing moment and kind of leaning heavily. It's like the zig when everyone else is zagging kind of a thing.
That's what it was, where it was like, look, for sure every other dress shirt brand is feeling the same pain we are.
And they're cutting back, they're pulling back on marketing, they're like trying to reduce, and you're like, we're all in. You take
seriously, that's what I was thinking.
You're all in. You push them all in.
There weren't very many chips. And I think that's honestly what probably gave us some freedom, where these other bigger dress shirt brands had people with families and with real livelihoods,
like,
where Jordan and
we can survive if this doesn't work.
And it's like, look,
it's going to sting the pride like we talked
it will. But it's like, look, we have a profitable business.
Yeah.
We don't owe anyone anything. We can just shut down if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so, all chips, all in. And we said, we're going to be the ones who invest into marketing. So when people come out of COVID, whenever that may be, we'll be top of mind. Yeah. And so that was the bet. And so we went to Creatively and said, hey.
What did you like about Creatively? Like, why did you pick Creatively?
So that Jay Davis and Damien took us out to lunch. This is probably the week before COVID.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of having the conversation and really liked a couple of their videos.
Yeah.
There was one for manly bands, which is wedding rings.
Yeah, that one's awesome.
And on the other side, they were also pretty new, and so were much cheaper. We were kind of in the same place, I would say.
Like, hey, we're willing to take a bet on you guys, so we're not going to be as expensive as maybe the Harmon Brothers or something. And if we can do really well, this will help us kind of blow up our brand, or And I'm sure they must have liked the product and liked you guys and said, hey, we want to work with you, and vice versa. Like, you liked those guys. They're brilliant guys.
Oh, yeah.
Some of my favorite people, actually. So you're having this conversation at lunch. What was your vision, or were you kind of like, hey, we're not sure, you guys tell us, like, how do we sell this shirt or something? Like, how did that brainstorming session go?
It was a little bit of both.
Okay.
Because the year before is when we started to add the stain repellents and the recycled materials.
Was that your idea, or was that customer feedback? Customer request?
That one was our idea, because I don't think customers were thinking that way yet. It wasn't super common.
Okay.
And so that one was from us. I think it was,
What was your aha moment? You shot some ketchup onto your shirt. Man, it'd be cool if that just bounced off.
Yeah, honestly, it probably was. I think it was my rain jacket.
Okay.
I had a rain jacket. I'm like, why can
the water just totally beads
repel?
up and rolls
up?
Yeah.
And white dress shirts, for whatever reason, the ketchup, like, I could be wearing my black shirt and a t-shirt, a black shirt, and there's no way that ketchup's going to come up on there.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just don't see it.
Yeah.
But the white dress shirt, it's like, of course, any mistake I make now with my food, it's going to happen, or drinks. And so, I think it was a rain jacket, but that was the year before. And so Damien, who's from Creatively, he had become a customer, and apparently every Creatively employee were customers. So we're all early adopters.
Nice.
And we're talking about us.
Okay.
And he approached us and said, hey, I think you check our criteria, which is, they call them the 5 Ds.
Yep.
Again, demonstrability. So we had that where you could pour stuff on
democracy.
yourself.
It's a wide range of use cases or people. Like easy distribution.
Oh, yeah.
You can ship it anywhere in the world for not like $1 million. I can't remember.
Whatever the other ones, because you're right. Democracy was the other one I remembered.
Yeah.
Where it's broad enough, and it's like, hey, half of America are men, and every man has the average is 2.5 dress shirts in a closet. So it's very broad.
Yeah.
And so we checked their boxes. They came to us and we liked them.
Yeah.
And then, probably 4 weeks, this is April, 4 weeks into COVID, they were like, hey, all of our contractors and us are out of work. You're talking about swinging big.
Yeah.
Why don't we just do something? And
let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it. So we got 3 videos for $40,000.
No way.
Steal.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, now, I don't know back in the day, but like those are 250.
Oh yeah. They're quarter.
Piece,
they're quarter to $500,000.
Yeah. Each.
Yeah.
So you got 3 for.
See, we got 3 for 40. And so
I don't know. It's like, do we have to edit this out? Does we not want anyone to ever?
I know.
Well, that was years ago.
After the fact, it felt a little bit exploitative, but it was perfect for both of us because then we became a great case study for them. And I think, it was.
Did you give them some ownership in the company as part of that?
Yep. I wish we would have had something like Awesome.
Something like Awesome.
Yep. Shout out.
Yeah.
Where we could have just made it very easy. Yeah. But it's like, hey, this aligns everyone.
Yeah.
Because, if we die fast, then it's worth 0 for you.
Yeah.
And if you really blow us up, then it's worth a lot to you.
Yeah.
So let's not make this totally transactional.
Yeah.
Let's make this a partnership.
Yeah. So they had some incentive to say, like, $40,000 is not a ton of money, but if we do a really good job, maybe this becomes something really interesting.
Yeah. And so we did. And it
was that like your last $40,000 in the bank almost?
Yeah. Looking back at it,
literally all the chips
I think it really was all the chips on the table.
Okay.
And I think
it's a bold move.
Yeah, our total annualized salaries between the two of us was $40,000. So I think we were both at 20. And so
living large.
Yeah, living very large. Dream. Yeah, living very large. And so I think that was all in.
Yeah.
And we launched the videos in May, and just this amazing thing happened where site traffic just exploded. And
did it crash your site?
It didn't crash our site.
Okay.
Shout out to Shopify.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, the site didn't crash. And we just got tons and tons of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from doing, I guess, on 300,000 in a year. It's $1,000 a day.
Wow.
$1,000 a day. Then we started to do, in I remember May 2020, we did 100,000 that month.
Well, in 1 month.
Yeah. So, right when we launched the videos, basically when we turned them on.
So this is like going to be a serious increase.
Yeah. And I wish it would have been awesome if we launched at another time when people were buying dress shirts. The interesting thing was, for the first time, we found that we were more of a functional brand rather than fashionable brand. And what I mean by that is we were being picked up by groups whose use of dress shirts and wearing of dress shirts was required and recurring, is what we call
uniform.
Yeah, uniform type stuff.
Okay.
And so
like restaurants.
Yep. So restaurants, although those were mostly shut down at the time. So that's
that's
picking
right.
up.
We're still in COVID. Okay.
But LDS missionaries, they still had to wear them even if they were inside their houses.
There's like 13 or 14,000 of those out there at any given moment.
Yeah. So 20,000 male. Yeah. 20,000 male missionaries. And so that there was that group. Orthodox Jews, interestingly enough. So I guess a religious outfitter.
Yeah.
And so just people who had to wear dress shirts.
Yeah.
And so that year we ended at 2.1 million.
Wow.
So went from 300,000 to 2.1 million.
In COVID still.
In COVID.
This is awesome.
So that's where, if people still would have been buying dress shirts, I'm like, oh gosh.
What could
have been? We were talking 5, 6.
Yeah.
And in fairness, again, it was a calculated risk. We took on some debt that year. So of the 2.1 million, we lost $600,000.
Yeah.
So that's the 1 year we've lost money.
Okay.
But it was still that bet. And there was a lot of, debt capital flying around then for fast e-commerce businesses with underwriting based on revenue.
Yeah.
So we checked the boxes and it's like, okay.
Even Stripe, right? Was like,
everyone was.
Yeah.
And so we could find it pretty easy, unsecured.
Yeah.
And we could get it in 48 hours. It's crazy to me.
And
we got it and that funded it. But it's like, hey, we're going to drive all of this demand because I think 2021 is going to be better in 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was very much on the back of demonstrating our shirts, because it's one thing to say we've got Under Armour dress shirts or Nike Dry Fit dress shirts.
Yeah.
With trademark issues, obviously, but versus, hey, I'm going to show you that this shirt stretches all the way this way.
Yeah.
So that means it doesn't come
And
untucked.
shooting all
Yeah.
the like
Yeah. When you,
ketchup
yep.
and mustard and wine and
Exactly. Yeah.
chocolate and whatever.
And that stuff. So, 2021, we did 6.7 million.
Wow.
2022, we did 10.7. This year we're calling this our puberty year. We had to clean up a lot of things where I think growth kind of masked a lot of a lot of things. So we've really tightened up.
Now you're focusing. So the first couple of years of an e-commerce company is just revenue. Let's just go, go, go. Even if your margins are kind of razor thin. Then as you start to come out of puberty, then you're like, okay, now we got to get efficient, maximize margins, makes our logistics really efficient and everything, right? So you're kind of been going through that refinement process.
That's where we're at now, because this year we'll hit 13. So it's the first year that it hasn't been, great growth.
Yeah.
We've been very fortunate. Things are good, and we're more profitable than ever, which is exciting.
Well, 300% growth is hard to sustain.
Yeah, exactly.
Forever.
And especially since we didn't raise money.
Yeah.
And so, next year, I mean, we're fully.
So to date, still have never raised any outside capital. It was a Kickstarter.
So Kickstarter, and we did take two checks from angels.
Okay.
And
so individual investors.
So it was $300,000.
Okay.
So it was from the former CEO of Express. So in every men's mall, or every mall, the menswear.
Yeah.
And then the other one was the managing partner of consumer at BCG.
Okay.
And
these are legit people. They know what they're doing.
And that was the thing. We just wanted people who knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
We didn't really need the money, and the money didn't transform anything for us.
Like, we want to grow up. It'd be nice to have some seasoned veterans kind of looking at our operations and saying, you could do this or you could do this.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I don't know the first thing about clothes, number one. I don't know the second thing about business. I don't. And it's like, what if we find people who understand
Did you still secretly have the dream to become a management consultant?
Yeah, apparently. This is me like, please just hire me. An extended interview. And so that was what we took in late 2020. But since then we haven't taken. I mean, we had a number of, term sheets from anywhere from 2 to 8 million of putting cash onto the balance sheet. And looking back at it, sometimes I'm like, man, it would have been nice to just keep that growth going.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think this year's been really important because we've grown up, and it's like, we can't just keep growing OpEx without like looking at it.
Yeah.
So in the past 30 days, we've slashed $650,000 of annualized OpEx that just didn't need to be there.
Wow.
It was just bloat that we'd let creep in.
Trimming the fat.
Yeah. So, and so anyway, lots of learnings to be had. I haven't accomplished it all. We're trying to get to 20 next year, and I think we can do it, but it's been a fun it's been a fun ride.
How big is the team now?
Full time, we're at 7, including part timers. We're at 20, but that's where we've wanted to keep it lean. And say, hey, can we still have more than $1 million ahead?
Yeah. How have margins been preserved or like impacted over the years? Are they holding true? Have you had to get narrower on the margins, or where's that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you transparently it just fluctuated.
Yeah.
Cost of goods when we started was at $16, landed, and now it's at 11. I'm talking about the shirt.
Yeah.
And so
increases in volume.
Yeah. And then
efficiencies in the production.
Yep. And moving manufacturers. And, so, and then the rest has been just on MSRP and what our sales price is.
Yeah.
One of the best bits of advice that David Kornberg, one of the two angels, gave us was that margin is mostly made on the sell side rather than the cost side. And what he meant by that is, at a certain point,
price.
Yeah. And at a certain point, I can't beat my factory into total submissions and make this for $2 without them cutting corners.
Yeah.
And he said, well, why don't you just have enough perceived value, discount less, and make the delta or difference between our sales price and what our realized average price is.
Yeah.
Tighten that up. And so, margins have fluctuated just based on what we've priced things at, if we've been heavily promotional or non-promotional.
Speaking of which, coming up on Black Friday, how have you guys approached this whole holiday season? Has that been as big of a thing? I mean, in dress shirts, it seems like it may or may not be as big of a like holiday sale kind of purchase, or have you leaned heavily into that? Do you get a big portion of your revenues just in this last quarter of the year, or?
Yeah, you would think that it's such an evergreen, or I guess ever white product. But we are very seasonal.
Yeah.
So November accounts for 29%
Wow.
of
Okay.
annual
So you
revenue.
guys
So
make a
yes.
big Black Friday
Yeah,
push.
it's very much
Okay.
Black Friday. And I think it's because, again,
The wives
we're
or the
functional.
spouses are getting their blue collar husbands their 2 new dress shirts
Yeah,
for Christmas.
seriously. And it's like, the thing I laugh about is we're very much a gifted item.
Yeah. It is
But-
funny you say that, because I have definitely bought more and collar shirts as gifts than for myself.
Yeah.
But,
And that's been the fortunate kind of trend we've ridden on,
yeah.
which is very normal behavior is you get one, then you buy another one for yourself, and then you start to gift to people who wear or need dress shirts.
Yeah.
But yeah, the interesting thing to me is people are gifting it. And I just wonder on the other side, it's like, man, for Christmas, if we're calling it a Christmas gift, what a bummer. I got a dress shirt.
It's so funny, because that's what I got my dad. And I mean, he's kind of old enough to like not expect like crazy gifts from his kids, but like I think he actually really loves those shirts.
Thanks for doing it.
But like, yeah, it's like, woo, this is an exciting
it's
gift.
like I realize we're functional. We have a big poster in our office that says we hate dress shirts. So I'm not going to pretend it's like, oh, I love dress shirts. We serve a purpose, and we're fine. We're fine doing that.
So at what point in the process did you start adding new items? And what was the first? Was it pants?
Yeah, pants.
So I think I remember
You're
that,
good.
like pants. So like what encouraged you to like start to branch out? Is it just like, hey, we can apply the same kind of concept, this like indestructible, if you will, kind of material that's super comfortable, stretchable, whatever, and turn it into the entire dress, uniform, socks, pants. I mean, do you guys even do shoes now? Is that a thing? So like you were kind of going the full, how did you like head that direction?
Yeah, that's always the tough thing where I mean, at least I am a deer in headlights, and everything I see, I'm like, that's awesome. It's shiny. Let's go do it. And so it took a lot of discipline, and maybe us just being cash constrained as a gift to us, that we didn't just come out with a billion different things. And that's why
I'm glad to bite off more than you.
Where I'm glad we didn't end up raising, because it's like, I don't know what sort of monster would look like now, where it's, we were very deliberate and said, we're a white dress shirt company, and we want to be best in class at that. Where I think there's a lot of clothing companies, but it's like, hey, I think the way we get to 50 million in the most profitable and sustainable way is by being the white dress shirt company. Where can that be the association people have with us? Where you talk about Kleenex, it's like, can we be? You just say, oh, I need an end collar shirt, and that's basically synonymous with a white dress shirt. So that's still the goal. And now that we're going to do 13 million, 70% or 65% of revenue is still the white dress shirt. So it hasn't really shifted that much. But we decided to come out with pants. That one was because of consumer feedback.
That's what I was going to ask. Was that your idea? Was it consumer?
That one was consumer. And it was saying, hey, can you just apply this to pants? I am in my pants all the time. They're not comfortable. And so we came out with pants late 2020.
So at that time there was like Lululemons and some other Rhone, like some other pants. So when you think about that from a competitive standpoint, where you're like, we're going to be better, we're going to be cheaper, like how did you think of it from a competitive angle?
We're in a really weird spot, and of our own choice, where to some consumers we're the expensive option, and to others we are the cheap option. And so to Rhone,
because you span this really interesting demographic.
We do. And it's all it's broad. And to Rhone customers, we are the cheap option. I'm wearing a Rhone quarter zip right now. Love the brand. To Lululemon consumers, we are the cheap. We're cheap. But then to the customer who's buying a white dress shirt from Kirkland brand from Costco, we're the expensive.
Super expensive.
Twice as much.
To the fancy ones.
And so it's this interesting thing.
But still within reach.
So,
because like someone who's coming from Costco is like, I could get an and collar, like pair of pants or a couple of shirts, where Lululemon or Rhone even those two might be like, that's just kind of out of budget.
Yeah.
That's out of range.
And that's what we wanted to be, ultimately accessible and affordable. And so all of that to be said, we wanted to provide those technical fabrics to a broader audience.
Okay.
So I guess you're saying cheaper, where straight
Let's
up.
say more affordable.
Yeah, more affordable. Yeah. No, seriously, because that's true. We
cheap, not implying you weren't going to cut corners on quality or any of that stuff, right?
I need you to run.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. More affordable because, if we're doing a straight comparison chart like you see on a lot of websites, it's like, oh, we had stain repellents where they did not.
Yeah.
We used recycled materials where they did not.
Yeah.
And I love both brands and love both pants. And really, Lulu's the one who created the pants category.
Yeah.
And so, we said, hey, can we be half the price? That's exactly what we priced ourselves at, 65 of those, but saying we're offering the same, if not more, technical features.
And still maintain your quality procedures, high quality products and manufacturing process, and still have a decent margin.
That was the idea. Pants is one we're still trying to really refine, where if I was giving an honest grade, it's like, I think it's a B+.
Yeah.
In fairness, that's from the scope of Lulu. I'm comparing it to those that are twice the price.
Yeah.
If you're talking straight value, we probably win.
It's great.
But where the shirt, compared to a $300 shirt, I genuinely believe we have a great product.
Yeah.
And the pants for sure are a good product, but that's one of those ones where I don't think we did as much as we should have in terms of the actual testing, where, the shirt, if you bought today, has now been iterated upon 12 times in terms of fit and features, where the pants we were like, okay, we can just come out with something. And
so again, you're constantly refining everything, but like the pants need to catch up to the shirts as far as like the feedback cycle.
Exactly. And I think finally we've gotten there or getting there, and we're really now trying to say, hey, let's solicit customer feedback and build the business based off of them, because ultimately they're the ones,
and to
powering
that point, were these other items that you've come out with in addition to the pants all customer driven, or were there some that you're like, no, we want to do this? How did you balance that?
All customer driven.
Okay.
All customer driven. Ties, we have ties, socks, pattern shirts.
I do love
polos.
the ties. I have a bunch of the ties because again, it's like ties the first thing that gets hit in my range of like
course,
damage.
It's the first line of defense.
Yes.
And that was one where it's like, I don't think people want to spend a lot on ties either.
Yeah.
So we priced that one very aggressively, where I think it's $18 a tie.
From 5 feet away, it's hard to tell the difference between a $200 tie and a $30 tie.
Yeah, seriously. And it's like, we'll make an $18 tie. And really the idea behind all of the product expansion, the goal has been, hey, how can we own more of Dave's wardrobe?
Yeah.
So it's not to say we want to become a tie company or a pants company. Yeah. It's saying we're going to, if we're calling it the gateway drug, the white dress shirt, that's for sure our most common, purchase behavior.
Yeah.
You buy the white dress shirt, 30 days later, can we get you to try the pants or the ties or the socks and say, hey, it's all the same features. You love the shirt, hopefully so far.
So try one of
these. But all of our advertising dollars still go into the dress shirt, and that's very much the mission, to become America's best dress shirt.
Hook. That's what gets everyone addicted.
Yeah.
And then we talked about shoes. Like where and how, because that's such a different thing from the perspective of like why people think about buying and color. Like what made you kind of make that leap?
Yeah, that one probably was more so vanity rather than customer driven of all the product category extensions.
Yeah,
where we launched that one in 2021.
Yeah,
and the idea was, look, a customer who was wearing a white dress shirt and a tie is wearing dress shoes, and that's right when Cole Haan had come out.
Yeah.
And they were, they're great shoes.
Yeah.
And they're pricing kind of performance. So the same idea, but for dress shoes, making them out of mesh, and so they're breathable. And they're pricing them at $160. It's like, I think we could make it for $80 and still have the stain repellents and have it be breathable. So that was the idea there. And we bought 3,000 units back in 2021, and the reviews were, pretty stellar. We were blown away. I think that was one we just said, check it.
Let's see how it goes.
Just do it. And then I can tell people I sold a shoe.
Yeah.
And feedback was really good. We waited 2 years because, again, we were like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But no one has really filled that void of saying an $80 an $80, let's call it a Kolhan, a performance dress shoe.
Yeah.
Our customers, if we're calling them waiters or missionaries or Orthodox Jews or blue-collar plumbers and that need to wear dress shoes, they probably want to be comfortable.
Super comfortable on their feet all day or most of the day. Right?
And they need to still look pretty professional. They can't just wear big hokas. And so can we fill that void? And so that's the reason where we waited 2 years. You know, it sold.
Does it feel like it's working with the shoes?
Yeah. So we relaunched 2 months ago, and it's been good sell-through. Nice. And again, we're not putting advertising dollars into it. It's all incremental.
All shirts first, and then you get sucked into the rest of the wardrobe.
And so that's supposed to just fit very specific customer profiles. And I think it's fulfilling its purpose.
Yeah. Okay. If you look back on this whole journey, how many times, or like, talk to me about the specific moments where you maybe wanted to give up, where you're like, what are we doing? Like, this sucks, or this is hard. Like, did you have a lot of those? Were there only a couple of those? Do you remember the specific moments, or was it like every other day was like, this is awesome, and then it sucks, and this is awesome, and it sucks? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, there've been lots. And whoever says it's easy, I think they're lying.
They haven't done it.
Or they like are doing something great. I mean, I could tell you lots of days, days when no one is buying. I remember February 2018, we launched and it was like, oh, it's a pretty good launch. February 2018, I think we did $800 in sales that month. I'm like,
the whole month.
Yeah. And I think half of it was from my cousin.
Wow.
I remember that. And it's like, okay.
One order, $400.
Yeah. And it's like, why am I doing this? There's that. I told you the COVID year.
Yeah.
Right when COVID happened. Any times that shirts come, your PO comes from the factory and there's something wrong with them. Back in the day, 2,000 shirts was our biggest ever order.
Mm-hmm.
And they all came cream colored. I mean, the color of your can almost.
No way.
And the factory tells us no cream.
It looked like they're already pre-stained.
Yeah, seriously. And the factory tells us cream is very in America.
Cream is in.
And like,
no. The guy's like, look, they won't even be able to see the sweat pit stains because it's all yellow already.
I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, are you kidding? So that day was a total... the crying. And
did they stand behind it?
No, that we pivoted, and that's actually been our best sell-through. That's a fun story.
Wow.
Where we're like, we can't get rid of these. We marked them at
half. They're like, sorry, you have these.
Yeah, you have them. We already paid for them. We had no terms back then.
Wow.
And we put them on the website, and we're in good conscience couldn't say they're a white shirt.
Yeah.
So we called them prototypes.
Yeah.
And we said, these are cream and all bold.
Yeah.
They are not white.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, but marked them at half off. And they just flew.
You sold them
and we've had some emails since then. Are like, are you coming back with the prototypes? Which is just so funny.
That is so funny.
And so it's funny to look back at it, but in the moment, I mean, I thought we were done there because it's like, do I just donate these? Not even, people don't even want these for donation, but apparently they did. So there's that. Employees, now that we're growing, the 0 to 1, I've heard a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of times the fun where it's just you and your buddy.
Yeah.
And it's like you hold each other accountable, but then you start to add employees and you're starting to build and put in processes. And it's like, those are a lot of moments where
tricky. And
there have been lots of days, tons and tons and tons of days, whether they're every other day or like a full month, where it's like, I just wish I was a farmer in Idaho. This is a real thought. Like, I laugh at it, but it's like, I've told
and all the farmers in Idaho are like, dude, you don't know what you're talking
I know.
about.
Yeah, here I am telling them. But it's like, I would love to go to a place.
Your worst day is better than my best day.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, where it's like, people are calling because we owe them money.
Yeah.
I have to pay for a PO or whatever. And it's like, gosh, how am I going to do that? It's like, I wish I could go to somewhere with no cell service and just work from 8 to 5.
Yeah.
And just
shut it down.
Yeah. And get my paycheck. I come home and I kick back on the recliner and just watch some TV. There have been lots and lots of days. So I'd say there have been more good days than bad, but I would be lying if I just told you about a lot of them.
Yeah. So I know you're married.
Mm-hmm.
At what point in the journey did you get married?
December 2018. From March 2018, when I was dating her, I was storing all the shirts in her garage. So she's been a part of it. Melanie.
Almost from first date.
Yeah,
like, hey,
seriously, it was
you
about
got
6
some
months
garage
in.
space?
Yeah, because we
My
were
criteria for my ideal woman is intelligent, funny, attractive, ample garage space.
Seriously, it was, she was in South Provo in a house.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I need a place to put it. We were like 2 weeks into dating. I'm like, can I please?
Yeah.
Now we were a few months into dating, but it's like, can I please put this stuff in your garage?
Yeah.
And her roommates were all really cool about it. And
Nice.
so she was there. And then December 2018, we got married. And we sat down and we said, look, that's when we decided we were going to do it full time. I didn't really start full time until the summer of 2019.
Okay.
We said, we're going to put a year on it.
So you included her in the decision.
Yeah. I mean, for sure.
If she would have said, don't do it, would you have bailed?
I would have.
Okay.
In fairness, I also think I was probably attracted to her because she's not the sort of person who would have said that. Yeah. She's as loyal and supportive as a person there is. And so, we said, let's put a year on it. I remember we
time boxed it.
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and we didn't say it needs to do X, Y, Z or specific milestones, but we put a time frame on it.
So let's see how we feel in a year. And if we're not like stoked, then we're out.
And she had a full-time job. And I think we both agreed if there's ever a time to do it, do it now. There's no kids.
So she was in on the decision, and that's cool.
And technically she funded our life from the beginning. So
nice. Yeah. Okay. So in the moments then that you were like thinking about quitting, giving up, where did you get strength? Where did you kind of catch your second wind, or like what helped you get through those tough times?
For sure, my wife, she's awesome, and she's done a good job of celebrating the high moments, less so than the worst moments or the bad moments.
Yeah.
Where she brought in balloons and donuts to do our first $100,000 month.
Like, let's celebrate the wins, baby.
Yeah. So where I'm not very good at that, neither is Jordan, where we just kind of plug along. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, it's like, Corey Stevens, who's the founder of Taft.
Yeah.
He's a friend, and I remember him texting me. He's like,
I got to get him on the podcast.
You should.
I know he's got some time on his hands.
He has lots of time. You should for sure.
Yeah.
He said, my biggest regret is not celebrating the moments where it's like, look how cool it is. We used to celebrate, and we've become a little bit desensitized.
Mm-hmm.
We used to do a little dance every day that we'd go over $1,000. At first it's like, oh, if we hit 1,000 in the whole day, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then we used to call it the $1,000 slide.
Yeah.
If we could do it before noon. And now it's like, hey, if we don't have it
5 minutes.
Yeah. It's like if we don't have it before 7 a.m. now, it's like, man, what's wrong with us? But it's like, we haven't done a good job of keeping the joy in it. But my wife has done a really good job of that. But all of that being said, during the darkest moments, having a co-founder, that he was the one. So Jordan, it helps that we're great friends, but he's really the only one that can empathize, with exactly what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Because guess what? His name is also attached to the operating docs.
Yeah.
We need, if we don't make this payment,
all the same pressure.
Yep, it's the exact same.
Yeah.
And that's where it would have been.
It's not empathy. It's like he's right in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's much better. But we're side by side, shoulder to shoulder. It's like, hey, if we don't make this work, you're screwed, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
And so he's been the one where I'd say that's been really, really healthy. And during the dark moments, or the moments it's deciding to quit, it's like, okay, it's not just me that's quitting. I'd be quitting on him.
Yeah.
And I think vice versa. So that's been a really good relationship.
Have you guys ever had serious disagreements about strategy, or you guys seem to always be in lockstep?
I think he said it was like 95% we're in lockstep. And I think it's healthy that we have the 5.
Yeah.
And it's funny. My little brother-in-law was an intern that helped us fulfill orders, and it was just the two of us.
Yeah.
He did it for free lunches. And he was in the room one time when we were having a serious disagreement. I think it was about shoes, actually, shoes 1.0.
Yeah.
And we asked him for his opinion to be the tiebreaker. And he was like, I got to go.
It's like, I'm related to you, and I'm not going to disagree. Even though secretly I think Jordan's totally right.
Oh yeah, no, and then Jordan and I do a really good job where it's like, okay, I'm not going to talk to you for a day. Where it's very healthy. Where it's, I'm not going to talk to you for a day. And then the next day it's like, okay, I'll concede this point, but I really think about this point. Okay. So yeah, I'd say probably 95-5.
Okay. But it sounds like you guys have a good enough friendship, enough trust that's been built up, and enough emotional maturity, self-awareness that like you can have passionate disagreements, but then listen to each other, even if it takes a minute to like cool off, like listen to each other, consider the other opinions and say, okay. And has it been pretty like, okay, I'll give in on this one, and then the next time, like you've given it, like has it been pretty good give and take on that?
Yeah, it's been pretty good give and take where I can point at some products that exist or the way that they exist or something on our website and say, okay, that's because Jordan ended up winning that argument or I conceded there and then him to me. And so I think there's been good compromise. And I think, I don't know if we're unique, but we've been very fortunate that that's how it has been. Where neither of us carry a grudge and it's like, look, I might tell you I told you so in 6 months if that pattern doesnn't work. But then it's done. And so that's
good-natured ribbing. The fact.
That's exactly what it is.
But not like bitterness. Or whatever.
And we'll bring it up. But
well, so it sounds like, I mean, this is kind of a pattern. And I try to tease this out in a lot of the conversations that I have for the podcast is picking a good spouse or partner, someone who's supportive of the same, aligned with you, like the same goals and objectives and dreams, and being involved in those kind of conversations. That's critical. And then picking a really good co-founder or co-founders, like someone or some people that you can actually have good debates. Like differences of opinion are healthy, right? So you're not just stuck in this blinders. But be able to like work through those effectively and come out the other end better and stronger and still have great relationships, right? Any other secrets to success besides these two key relationships?
I can't say I'm the most successful, and a lot of it, the success we've had, we've almost stumbled upon or has happened in spite of us. So I don't know if I have this magic checklist. As cheesy as it sounds, I'd say the main thing is resilience. And what I mean by that is some years, there's going to be a year where your product category is totally obsolete. But guess what? It's obsolete for all your competition, and you just have to be the one to stick it out. And you have to show up on the days that you don't want to show up. You have to, go deliver the order the night of because that person needs it for their wedding the next day. I would say
sometimes you have to push all the chips in.
Like if you're gonna swing, you might as well really swing. And so those are all the things to say. I guess I'm not a very talented individual. I just am a stubborn one who just sticks around, whether for right or for wrong. And my main takeaway is it's like anyone can do it. I think the barriers to entry are smaller, shorter than have
every year. The technology and just all the infrastructure and stuff gets easier and easier for people to like launch their own thing or build their own thing, right?
If you're doing a consumer brand, very succinctly, set up on Shopify for $19.99 a month. Anyone can afford $20 a month. Go on Alibaba.com and type exactly what you want to create. I want to create a leather or suede jacket. You go on MOQs now, you can make them for 50. You can make 50 units. Cost you $20. You pay $500 for the sampling fees. It's like, hey, for less than $5,000, $3,000, you can technically have a business up and running. And so
that wasn't even the case like 5 years ago.
No, it wasn't.
This is a brand new thing.
You talk about all the, I guess, the pioneers of direct to consumer. You're talking about Warby Parker. Allbirds is a little bit later, but Warby Parker, Dollar Shave Club. Warby Parker guys had to custom build a site. On Shopify, you can have an awesome site for free. There's free themes.
Templates.
There's templates that are free, and it's like, you would never know that. In fact, that site will look way better than Warby Parker's that they spent $50,000 on to launch. And so I'd say just do it. I think, and that's one where you don't even have to put all your chips on the table. Just throw a couple chips out there. And it's
got very little to lose these days.
And I'm not a fisherman by any means, but it's, hey, if you put the pole in for longer, the odds of you catching something go up.
And here's the thing I like to say to like creators, so I'll see if you agree with this, but it's the Wayne Gretzky thing of like, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. I mean, maybe I'm not misattributing to them, but in my mind, that's a
Wayne Gretzky,
thing.
Michael Scott from The Office. If you but it is
a Michael Scott quote. No, it's and it's the thing that like if you've got an idea now and every day, especially with AI and with all these other advancements and stuff, there's kind of no reason to not give it a shot, right? I mean, a couple of years ago, especially like 10 years ago, it was so much harder than now. Like, my 15-year-old son can come up with an idea and launch a business and even almost pre-sell stuff before even having to get it manufactured, just to see if like everyone totally hates the idea or if there's enough people that are like, oh, that's interesting,
Yeah, if you're smart, you just pre-sell it. And that
sell before you build.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And it's like, yeah, that I think the greatest shame is just if you don't do it.
Yeah.
And if you do the simple math, it's like, hey, if you price it decent enough, just sell it for cost. If its product market fit just isn't there, sell it at cost.
Yeah.
To your friends and family.
Yeah.
And you really start to see
the cream shirt theory.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I want to call that.
Yeah, the cream shirt theory. Yeah. Trademarked.
Yeah.
And you can keep the trademark.
Okay.
I do not want it. I want nothing to do with it. But yeah, it's like, look, if your son wants to sell a better ruler, if they're still using those in high school. A better ruler.
Mine from time to time.
That can bend in however many different ways.
Yeah.
You can make 50 of those. It'll cost him $2 a pop.
Mm-hmm.
If it really doesn't work, he can sell them for $2 a pop to all of his cousins and his friends, and I'm sure they'll buy it.
Yeah.
And you're out nothing. You just learned a little bit. Yeah, you learned a little bit.
Yeah.
So I am the biggest advocate. And if I were to have a full-time job right now that wasn't and color, I would probably be trying to set something up on Shopify. Yeah. And you just slowly test the waters.
Test your ideas. Yeah.
So I'm the world's biggest advocate for just throwing something out there.
Nice. Well, last question. Where do you go from here? What does And Color look like in 5 years? Is the strategy that like at some point it's most likely you'll get acquired by some huge like conglomerate, or do you want to like do this until you die and always own it? Or like, what's your mindset around that? And like, what does the future look like for And Color?
I hate dress shirts. And so, I don't wake up passionately thinking about the dress shirt. Yeah. I think the fun part is, what are the problems around dress shirts, or how do we connect it to more consumers? But I'm not going to lie and say I want to do this when I'm 70, still be pedaling. Okay. And so the goalposts have always moved. That's what Jordan and I have said. Yeah. Where it's like, hey, I remember a very distinct conversation at a deli one time.
We hit the $50,000 mark and went past it.
Yeah. Because we said if someone slides a check across for $7 million, we don't even do any due diligence. We just run, take the check. Yeah. And it's like, oh, and someone actually, in reality, offered 4 times that. Yeah. And we didn't take it. Yeah. And it's like, okay, it's kept moving. I think now we have something very firmly circled. Yeah. Where it's saying, hey,
this is the number.
Yeah. This is the number.
And then you and Jordan own 100%. I mean, I know you gave a little to some like agency partners, like we talked about. Still haven't raised any money. Really?
Yeah, outside of that 300,000, and those were very favorable terms to us.
So you guys own the bulk of the cap table.
Yep, yep. So it's a very clean cap table. We're now finally.
I've got a platform for you to give a little away to some influencers.
Yeah. Oh, and seriously, because we've talked about that, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you. Where it's like, okay, let's actually have an options pool for employees. Yeah, and let's get people back on the supercharged train, and let's reward the people who get us to, $250 million in revenue. Yeah. And so love awesome. And I do want to take a demo and talk about it. But I think first off, we want to get back to a great growth story. Yeah. I think the thing we set out to learn, we've learned now and accomplished. Oh, we came out with these amount of products. We've come out with basically every product we've wanted to. Yeah. And it's like, oh, we've now done wholesale. 20% of our business is wholesale.
We haven't done cowboy boots.
We haven't done cowboy boots, but that one isn't on our to-do list. But 20% of wholesale. It's like, oh, we closed a big box. Kind of check. I know that sounds horrible, but it's like we've done and are doing this stuff. Yeah. It's like, oh, now we've actually, unfortunately, a kind of a red check mark. We've fired people and had to let people go or let agencies go. Yeah.
Tough decisions always.
Oh, very hard. Yeah. And it's like, okay, we're slowly getting to that point. And so if I'm being totally real, it's like, hey, can we get this to 50 million in a 2 year or 36 month period? Yeah. And then at that point, hopefully macro environment is better.
Yeah.
Let's get out and let's see.
Okay.
But I
So
think
if you hit your number a couple of years from now, are you hey, I'm retired and maybe I'm just going to be an investor or whatever, you start taking it easy, or you have a notebook full of ideas and you're like, okay, I know myself, I'm going to have to go like build some more stuff after this. How do you picture that?
That's where I'll give you a call to see how you made that decision.
Yeah.
But
I don't think I made the right decision. Well, so I'm back in the saddle.
Yeah, I know.
Because the one thing I learned about myself was, even though I loved aspects of like just consulting and investing and mentoring and that kind of stuff, there was a lot of fun. I'd still love and have great relationships in there. I didn't realize how much I would miss building.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that. And I think my wife and people close to me can tell, like, dude, you have that fire back. You have that twinkle in your eye, that excitement, like that passion. And I feel it. Like, I'm energized because I love what we're doing at Awesome, and building something again is so cool. And so I loved the consulting, but I guess I've realized now in my old age, I probably can't retire. I'm not the retirement kind of type. I'm going to always be working on some idea or building something or doing something. Yes, I'll continue to invest and help and coach and mentor where I can be valuable, but I think I'm always going to have to be building something myself. It's just how I'm wired.
I would copy and paste that answer.
Okay.
Still learning about myself, but I mean, I have a whole list of ideas, most of which I realize are not great.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, can I get the twinkle in my eye? So I'm sure that's what I'll be pursuing.
On my deathbed, even if 90% of my ideas in my notebook were bad, were failures, I would have rather been the man in the arena that tried and failed than to have a notebook full of ideas that I never got to and have all these regrets that I didn't try it.
Oh yeah. That's exactly where I'm at. And I have those, and I know a lot of them are stupid, honestly. And it's like, okay, I don't know how you monetize that one, but it sounds fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping that AndColor at least provides a platform to be a little bit selective. And I realize that's coming from a place of privilege.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, because of what we've built now, do I have the opportunity to be selective and say, that's what I want to do. And I think that's what entrepreneurship, I mean, that's the blessing of it. You've started a business, you've exited a business.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I think there's nothing like it. And that the further I get along, I'm like, I'm the reluctant entrepreneur where I'm like, oh, I actually love it. And so I just am in denial.
Yeah.
And so I think it's awesome. And I imagine and hope that I just follow along in your footsteps.
Oh, well, there's way cooler footsteps to follow in for sure. But I love that. Like, it's fun to talk to fellow entrepreneurs, fellow builders, fellow creators. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast, was I just love hearing the stories. I love the highs and the lows. And while I want to really inspire more creators to do their ideas, which is why I'm kind of making this big emphasis, like, it's so easy now compared to even a couple of years ago. You almost don't have any excuses not to try it. I also want them to go in eyes wide open that, like, it's hard. There's a lot of really, really tough things, and emotionally it's tough. So you need a couple of things like great support group, whether that's spouse or friends or family or people who are going to like pick you up when you fall and get, beat down, and potentially great co-founders or people around you who are in it with you, who like believe in it together, and you can kind of, riff off of each other and do stuff together. But man, it's so fun when things are going well, and it's got to be cool. Tell me if I'm wrong, but especially in the consumer product space, you walk around and you see people wearing something that you built and loving it and liking it. And that's got to be pretty fulfilling, right?
That's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
If I had to pick out one thing that I love most, we call it spotting in the wild.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I've never seen that guy. I don't know him. And guess what? I'm not even related to him. Because at first it's like, oh, I don't know that person, but he's related to Jordan. But it's like, oh, they're real people now.
Yeah. And it's not just like Utah.
Yeah.
You could go to California, you could go to Texas, you can go to Florida, and you've sold enough shirts globally or like everywhere that like there's a chance that you're going to see AndColor almost anywhere you go. That's cool.
Yeah, that's the coolest, where we're coming on 1 million units now, and it's like, oh, you do the math. That's a major city. That's a major city.
See your shirts out there everywhere.
Yeah, and it's cool where you could be in the airport at LAX, for example, and it's like, oh, that's one of our shirts, and you can see the little blue button or whatever. So that's definitely the coolest thing. That's why I love consumer, where it's, can I create something that other people of their own, volition choose to not only wear, but also spend money on?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard-earned money.
Individual choice.
Yeah.
It's not like a business. Like, I've done a lot of B2B and SaaS stuff, but it's more committee.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're not sure that it's benefiting every single person that's involved. But like in this kind of a case, like they either love it or they don't. It's an individual decision. And it's kind of like, yeah, I'm wearing this with pride. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a million other options. So they don't have to wear us, but they're choosing to. So that's definitely the coolest. And that's probably what gets me up in the morning. We're like,
yeah,
I saw someone yesterday. Like, let's go make 10 other people.
That's it. That's the beauty of creation.
Yeah.
Right. That's cool. Ben, you're awesome. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. And I can't wait to see when you hit the number. We haven't said the number. When you hit the number and you get your big exit, let's celebrate. I'll come help you celebrate. And then we'll say, okay, what's the next thing you're going to do? And I'll either invest in it or like be, like help you out.
Deal.